Hello and welcome back to One Hive TV. I'm your host T. Wells. I appreciate you for joining us. This video is all about celebrating the recent launch of Gardens V1. The Gardens party ran a little over 2 hours, so we hope you enjoy this distillation. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Gardens team over the One Hive Discord. I'm going to hand it off to Paul here to give us an overview of the Gardens system using his super fantastic infographics. Thanks to everybody who was able to make it out for the event, in particular our speaker guests. We'll be hearing a little bit more from them later in this video. It was my pleasure to co-host with Paul. Of course, Paul deserves the lion's share of the credit for putting this event together. It was awesome. Many thanks to you, Paul, on behalf of all the bees of One Hive and the Gardens community.
I'm starting off with an overview of the Gardens Governance Framework. This is what launched today. The Gardens Governance Framework is the One Hive Governance Framework, and now it's being made available for anyone to use in a plug-and-play format. The goal of Gardens is to give DAOs bottom-up governance. What Gardens tries to do is make it so that anyone can come into a DAO, and if they're passionate about what the community is up to, then they can have an impact on the value that it creates. So who wants this type of governance? If your community needs security, you're doing something where you're worried that a government might decide that it doesn't like you someday, you would like bottom-up governance. If you have passionate people, this could even be a company that has customers that really like their product. You as a company can dedicate a portion of your budget to something like a garden, and you'd probably be really surprised with the great work that those people are able to do when they're given capital and the ability to create value for you. But most important is communities that build public goods. If you are building public goods, the people who get the value from those public goods, they're the ones that know how valuable they are. It's in some ways more of a subjective value than something like, say, where you have revenue, but the people that you want to have influence in public good communities are exactly those people. Bottom-up governance is good for specific types of organizations. This is the One Hive governance framework in a picture. You've got a piggy bank / keg of beer that anyone in the community can access. The tokens in that treasury are populated automatically. First, you have the covenant, which is the participation agreement that anyone in your community signs if they want to take part in your community. So here's some examples of things that might be in your covenant. The second one, that's taken from the One Hive covenant. And the third one is from the Bright ID covenant. And what you're doing with your covenant is you're setting in stone the direction of your community, which kind of secures what your DAO is going to be doing going forward. Second part is your common pool, which is populated with dynamic supply, and that works by having a reserve ratio where the common pool represents a portion of the total supply of that token. So at One Hive, we have a 30% reserve rate. If the number of tokens in the common pool falls below 30%, then tokens get minted into the common pool. And if it goes above it, then they get burned. And both of those are throttled so that you dampen the change in supply. And then you also have a maximum annual inflation so that you keep the tokens scarce. And this system gives you both a scarce token that can grow in value while also giving the community flexibility to adjust to changing needs for new treasury supply. You can also bring your own token into a garden. There's a bunch of reasons you might want to wrap a token in a garden. Maybe you already have a token and you want to use that for governance. Maybe you want to create multiple gardens and you want to control the budget that each of those gardens gets. Maybe you have a hierarchy where you have a main garden with dynamic supply that feeds sub-gardens with wrapped tokens from that top garden. You can also wrap Ethereum or USDC, which has a lot of interesting uses. They're kind of only limited by your imagination with what you can do with a wrapped token garden. Those are the two types of gardens. You have a dynamic issuance garden with a token that you create or you can bring your own token into a garden. The way that you request funding in a garden is with conviction voting, where anyone can create a funding proposal. The more money that you ask for, the more support that you need for that proposal to pass. And there's also a minimum support. No matter how small your proposal is, you're going to need to meet a minimum level of support to get your funding. And then as a voter, with your tokens, you can split them up however you would like between the active proposals. So if these are your tokens down here, if you really like a proposal, you can put all your tokens over there. If you like every proposal, you could split them up, or maybe you want to put one token here and a couple over there, and then abstain with the rest of your tokens. This creates a culture that's really positive. So instead of having these binary yes-no votes that divide communities, we see this in the United States of America, where we have this political system that divides the country into two people that don't like each other, which is not a productive way for people to coexist. With conviction voting, you don't just say, no, I don't like this. You say, I'm not supporting this right now, but maybe if you changed X, Y, or Z, then I would support this. The other nice thing about conviction voting is that you have this really naturally well-designed system where the best proposals and most important proposals are getting passed most quickly. Proposals that aren't as good will either take longer to pass or they won't pass. The final part is the namesake of conviction voting, which is that your votes don't have weight right away. When you first vote, your tokens need to accrue value. So the longer that you hold your tokens in a proposal, the more weight they have until eventually you reach the full weight of your votes. So that creates this opportunity cost. So you have to be selective with the proposals that you choose because it takes time to support it. And it also dampens the effect of whales, because putting a bunch of tokens on one proposal, it dampens that effect. So let's speed this proposal up until it passes, except it doesn't pass right away. It's got to grow in value. Eventually, you grow enough conviction that it passes and you can get your funding. But before you get your funding, there's one final boss you got to beat, which is Celeste. And that is the decentralized arbitration protocol. When a proposal passes, anyone in the community has the ability to object to it. And if it gets objected, then it's sent to a jury of randomly selected stakers in Celeste. Anyone can stake honey in Celeste. And the more you stake in Celeste, the more likely you are to be chosen as a jury member. So what winds up happening is that if Celeste gets invoked, most likely the people are heavy honey investors who are incentivized to act in a way that helps the system. When the jury is selected, the key to their decision about whether or not the proposal should pass is the covenant. And the jury is going to decide if there was a violation of the covenant. If there was, the proposal is rejected. And if there wasn't, you get to drink your beer. Finally, if you have a community treasury of magic internet money, then you should definitely have a system that's this secure for that. That's the Gardens governance framework. Hopefully this kind of feels a little bit more intuitive. It's a lot of information. It's kind of complicated, but like in the end, you have this relatively simple, really beautiful system that empowers people while having protected community that is hard to abuse.
So yeah, this whole kind of host of things, I guess, gets enabled just by this really simple kind of design shift of just decoupling those two things, account and control. And I guess the reason that it's relevant to this call today is just because everyone, I guess, really Gabi and a bunch of others at Gardens. Were eager and very kind of forward thinking and jumping on board with the idea of actually implementing this. So Garden Style now basically is Zodiac compliant, and that you can use it to control a NOSA safe, and that can be the place that holds funds. And so if you as an organization start out as a multi-sig and then later on decide, hey, we want to start deciding how we spend our money using Garden Style, you don't have to move funding from your multi-sig. You don't have to phase out any of the control mechanisms that you've had existing already. You basically just plug in your Garden Style, and now it can do its thing and allocate the funding.
All I can say is, like, if we're already learning so much through this dashboard about conviction voting and DAO voting and really the art of debating the parameter choosing. parameter sets, if we really want to do bottom-up governance, it starts at the beginning. It starts at the design. Otherwise, you end up with a technocracy that has a special understanding of why decisions were made. Token Engineering Commons, we're trying really hard to combat that practical, naturally accepted situation in crypto where the people who are designing things, they made certain decisions and they have an understanding of why those decisions were made. And so they have, going forward, a special understanding of how to actually make good decisions for parameter settings.
But yeah, I'm really happy to be representing and sharing a little bit about Giveth and what we're doing and kind of like how we're using the garden. The whole purpose of the Give economy is like in line with our mission for Giveth, which is to build a culture of giving that rewards and empowers those who give to projects, to society, and to the world. So we want to be a DAO or a community that is of the donors, by the donors, and for the donors. We're creating this system called Givebacks. If you have a project on Giveth, you can apply for our project verification system, where basically our team will do a background check on the project, make sure that the funds are going to support a collective good, make sure that they are who they say they are, checking if they have any reputation at stake, etc. And so you can donate to any of these awesome verified projects that are on Giveth. The donors to those verified projects will be getting Give tokens. Essentially, what we're doing is we're empowering and rewarding our donors with Give tokens. So when you donate to projects, you get Give token, the token that's like driving the garden. We're going to be using the whole garden with our community and with our donors, guiding the way that our funds in the common pool are being used. With the gardens framework, we're able to really do this exit to community, continuing to give more tokens to the donors, to the people who are giving and supporting the creation of projects that are like ultimately public goods, that are like nonprofits is kind of our main audience for the public good side of things.
ID B-Main DAO was the first ever membership DAO that we're aware of, where people had one person, one vote. We decided that when launching more of a community effort, that Gardens would be a great tool for that. And we saw within days, we had 1,000 people that had taken part, at least in some little way, in our Gardens. As of today, Bright DAO has the most, quote, members. Yeah, we feel deeply aligned with OneHive. Super excited that OneHive is using Bright ID as part of its Celeste system. Bright ID just wants to be a tool that's available to this community and all the other communities to help keep the civil attacks at bay. It's a really hard problem to solve, so it's one that we should do collectively instead of everyone trying to solve it themselves. The more projects that use Bright ID, the more all of them and all of us benefit.
So we hope you enjoyed these highlights from the Gardens launch party. Any questions, head over to the OneHive Discord. Make sure you like, subscribe down below. We really appreciate your support. Happy holidays, everybody. Stay bullish. We'll see you in that next video.